We've got Mark Williams in the studio right here. He's running Colorado's 2nd District. Great to have you here, Mark.
Pleasure to be here, Cenk.
All right, so let's break down your race. Are you the progressive candidate in the race? Are we sure about that?
Well, I mean, you know, there's progressives and then there's faux-gressives, right? In the district I'm from, which is Colorado's 2nd, we have, you know, it's one of the most progressive districts in the country probably. You know, it's got Boulder, it's got Fort Collins. It's gerrymandered solid blue, and it's going to go progressive, right? And so you start seeing the positions of the different candidates. You go, well, both are progressives, but then you start peeling the onion back, and you go, who's the one that's not taking money from PACs, special interests, or lobbyists, or DC insiders, right? Who's the one that's standing strong against fracking and against extraction, right? And then who's the person who's saying enough of the wars and let's get out of Afghanistan? And in my mind, in a district like ours, that's what progressive's all about.
Okay, that's you, right?
Yep. Last time I checked, that was me.
Okay, so solidly blue, so the Democratic Party should stay out of it. What difference does it make? In fact, if they were real progressives, they would back the more progressive candidate because you're going to win no matter what in the general election. So why not get someone as progressive as possible? So I assume they poured a lot of money into your campaign to support you, right?
Well, I've just, you know, tons and tons of money, and I didn't know what to do with it all. So I just said, take it back, Steny, do something else with it, and maybe give it to the other guy. And that's actually what's happened. You know, I mean, it looks a lot like what happened in Colorado's 6th, where, you know, Levi got pushed out and so on and so forth, and the race broke down the same. And you know, one of the unique things about our district is it's, you know, there's a little civil war, or maybe a big civil war brimming in the Democratic Party. And we are the front lines of that, because you can't say, oh my goodness, well, if we don't have a centrist here, right, we're not going to win this race. That's absolute rubbish. And they got involved here just like they did in the 6th. And the fact of the matter is, it's a Dem, you know, it's a Democrat's going to win. And so this district went basically 70-30 Bernie.
Wow.
So, you know, riddle me that, Riddler. Why can't we have the right representation here?
And by the way, just so you know, Mark's opponent is not an incumbent, because that would be another excuse. But Jared Polis, the incumbent, is going to run for governor, so it's an open seat. Yeah. So how do you know if the Democratic Party establishment is supporting your opponent? Well,
you know, here's what it looks like. So the day after Jared announces for governor, you know, my opponent's website pops. Within 2-3 days, probably 60-65% of the elected folks in the district have endorsed him. Pretty quick, he's getting money from AmeriPAC, Steny Hoyer's group, and then all the other PACs that are flushing money out of DC. He gets flown out by the DCCC to the same thing in Williamsburg that all the other anointed candidates get to. And then, you know, we were putting our campaign team together, and as I started talking to folks, they would hear about my campaign, they'd go, that sounds really good. You're like the progressive in the race. And then all of a sudden they'd go dark, and I found out later they were basically saying, you work on a Williams campaign, you'll never work again in Colorado politics.
And there's just no excuse for it. So that leaves you with basically your only option is that they're doing it because they're in favor of the corruption. They don't want people to come in and not take a corporate PAC money and not use their lobbyists and not use their consultants, et cetera. Because just, look, yesterday, Kara Eastman, who's a just Democrat, doesn't take corporate PAC money, won in Nebraska against a corporate-friendly conservative Democrat, Brad Ashford, who was a US congressman. In Washington, they were saying that's an own goal, meaning that the Democrats shot themselves in the foot. Now, I think that's absolutely wrong, and I think a populist progressive has a way better chance of winning in Nebraska, but that's Nebraska. You've got no excuse in the most Democratic district in the country.
Yeah, you know, it's Boulder, Colorado, and you know, what they've done is line up, you know, oil and gas. They've lined up all the typical lawyer PACs and lobbyists. And so, you know, my opponent's taking money from all the oil and gas interests, and they have a lot of stroke in Colorado. And then he's taking money from, you know, Steny and his groups, and then taking money from folks like, you know, Brownstein, the 2nd biggest lobbying firm in the country. And if you Google Norm Brownstein, you'll see a picture of him with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. You know, so he's arguing to make sure American arms get delivered to Saudi Arabia so they can fight Yemen and continue the refugee crisis. And I say, in my district, That's not progressive. I mean, we are a place where you can have an anti-war candidate, a candidate that stands for stopping and banning fracking, and a candidate that says no PAC, special interest lobbyists, or insiders. And that's where I'm coming from.
So, and I want the audience to understand that in some of these races, in Democratic primaries, it doesn't mean that your opponent is a terrible person. It doesn't mean that they're wrong on all of the issues. Right. No. But if someone's taking money from all the people that you just mentioned, I can't trust them. Maybe they're a good person and maybe they'll be progressive on some of the issues, but that's not good enough, especially in a deeply blue district. There's just no reason to settle for that.
No, exactly. And so, my opponent's a great guy, nice guy, and that's what everybody says. He's a really nice guy. But my problem is, it's like, you took money from a corporate PAC. That corporate PAC lobbied Hickenlooper against signing the high-capacity magazine ban after the Aurora shooting. First of all, why would you take that money? I mean, count me out for it, right? And I think you need to have more political imagination and go, I'm going to stand strong against this, because that's not what progressive values are all about. So how can you vote against the NRA and all that kind of stuff when you're taking that kind of money? And by the way, they fund Republicans as much as they do Democrats. If you look at who they give money to, they're feeding both sides, and that's the problem, as you know.
Exactly. So, by the way, we'll have the links to help Mark's campaign in the description down below in YouTube and Facebook. And let's put them up. It's markforcolorado.com is the website. So you just jump on there. And obviously donations and volunteers are really, really important for campaigns that are not taking corporate PAC money. Mark, now you and Levi got me on pins and needles for the Colorado primary. I can't wait to see what's going to happen there.
June 26th is that primary. And so folks who are interested in Colorado or who live in Colorado, that's the day to remember, June 26th, because after that, it's all decided. Certainly in my district, because whoever wins that, it's gerrymandered blue. That's going to be your congressperson.
So you've got a lot of union experience. You were chair of the Boulder County Democrats. You were in the U.S. Air Force, and you did what, data and technology there? Is that right?
Yeah, I've been in the startup world, been in the military. I flew for the airlines for a while. I was a fighter pilot in the Air Force in one of my previous lives. So yeah, I've been here and there, as it were.
And now, but I want to ask about your issues. So you're progressive down the line, Medicare for all, no corporate PAC, et cetera. But you got two things on here that stand out. One is guard public lands.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, everybody thinks Colorado and they think the Rocky Mountains, right? And so the beauty of the Rocky Mountains, the splendor of the Rocky Mountains, Rocky Mountain National Park, et cetera. But if you start seeing what's happening in terms of extraction there with oil and gas and fracking up and down the Front Range, and then even on the west side of Colorado, it's just ripping the land up, not to even mention the climate change stuff. So between one thing and the next, you say, in Colorado, we need to stand strong against oil and gas because it's devastating our public lands, and the amount of the amount that extraction's going after that kind of thing, it's ruining what Colorado is all about.
And then the other thing's related, which is you've got Stop Fracking in Boulder County. Why? Is there fracking going on in Boulder, one of the most liberal places in the country?
Right, exactly.
There is?
Yeah, so the bulldozers are quite literally at the county line. Mm-hmm. And, they're fighting it out. And our governor, Hickenlooper, of course, he's on the side of oil and gas. And, there's been a lot of shenanigans in oil and gas and Colorado politics. And so the bulldozers are quite literally there, and folks are rising up and fighting against it. And that is where all the activists are coming together, because that's ground zero. And the way that we see it is, if we stop fracking here, that basically puts the flag in the ground, and that's how we start changing this conversation about accelerating to renewables.
So, Mark, let's dive into your strategy. So you're right on the issues, and the Democratic Party's against you, so I'm on your side. Okay, so the establishment doesn't want you. That must mean you're uncorrupted. But so how are you going to win? So talk to me about, I'm sure that you've got limited resources compared to the guy with getting all the PAC money.
Yeah.
How are you going to deploy those? What are you going to use them on to try to get this victory?
No, it's a great question. We're going to be outspent 10x. And so with my background in the startup world, I've got a lot of folks that have come on board that are best in class in terms of their abilities for social media and all that kind of stuff. So we're leveraging all that. I also did a bunch of work in streaming video, and so we've got a lot of great video content. But most importantly are two things. First is ideas. We've got the right ideas for this district because, like I said, 70-30 Bernie. And secondly is we've got a just kick-ass group of volunteers, and these people are motivated. They're on the ground. They're making a difference, and it's like, yeah, we're going to get outspent, but you know what? The vigor, the ideas, how motivated and how pumped we are, and if we turn out the Bernie vote, we take this puppy. This is a way winnable thing.
All right, everybody. Mark Williams, 2nd District of Colorado, might soon be Congressman Williams. So, Mark, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Cenk. I appreciate it.